Welcome everyone. Our webinar today is on mounting, price, and enter. So I'm going to go directly into our FrameReady software program, and here we are at the main menu in FrameReady, and we're going to be working in the price codes file. So I'm going to go directly to the price codes file using the red corner sample, and I made sure that I wasn't on mounting so that I can show you how to get there. So if you are in the list view of the screen, all of the icons are showing at the top and mounting is in the center. So if you're in the list view and you click on mounting, you're going to see a list of all of your mounting items that are in the program. If you are in the form view, and let's go up to the form view up here, then you'll see those same gray buttons listed on the left-hand side of the screen, and of course mounting is just over on the left. If you are in the form view and you click, let's just go off of that for a moment, and we click on mounting, then it will bring up all of the mounting items. So there's one of 25 in my list, but it's only going to show you them one at a time because we are in the form view. So the very first thing that I want to talk to you about is, let's go back to the list view. What are the items that you should have in your mounting listing? And you can have as many as you like. I know people who have up to 50 in there. So it depends on what you are selling. The items that are in the mounting group are items that are sold as a flat surface area usually. So if you want to price out a flat surface, then you want to use the mounting section. If it's something that you want to price as a product, that it's a one-time thing that you can come in and purchase, then you can put that into extra, because in the extra field, and let's just go to the form view on that, this is where you have the ability to price per United Inch or a minimum or a set price. So it's just a fixed dollar amount. Whereas for mounting, this is where we're pricing by a surface area, and we'll be covering that in a few minutes. So that's the difference between where you would put a flat surface pricing area, so any printing, any canvas stretching, any foam board. So rather similar to the mat board, but you still, even in the mounting, have the option to price something strictly just by the set price if you want to. So you can either do a solid object or with a flat rate price, or price something on a surface. So let's go take a look at the items that you're going to put in here. You may want to choose the items that you're going to put in here based on what's on your work order. So if we were to go to the work order screen and you have certain items that you've already filled in, so perhaps under mat design you have a float mount, all right? You could have that under the mount stretch, but if you have it under mat design, then you can use your mount stretch for the other substrates that are behind it. Now, you could also choose to have something that might normally be in mounting under the mat design, just so that you could have, but you don't have to go and drill down to add in additional items. So that's an option too. Most times I find people will put everything that they need right into the mount stretch, but give it some thought. You can move things to other groups if the pricing suits it, so that you can do that as well. Now, this is all based on the items that you have in here. Let's go back to that list. And if I'm looking at everything in the list view, and I'm going to sort them out by clicking on the underlined word item. So now they're sorted out alphabetically. But I also want to take a look and say, what are other items that you might want to put in here? Because I do have an extensive list in here already, but I want to show you a listing that I came up with of different items that I've accumulated working with other people, things that people have put into their mounting items. And if I may have just one item listed here as acid-free, but then they might have acid-free white, acid-free black, or acid-free 3/16, or acid-free foam board 1/8. So even if I just have one item listed here, you could see where you could possibly have many, many more. And another thing that's really important about putting your items in there is, how do you want them to be listed? So you can see in this listing that anything that's for printing, I've got PRT in front of the item, so that it's going to arrange all of those together, because it is arranged alphabetically. Now, if you want to change the arrangement on them, and the other thing is you can use hyphens, okay, or you can use commas to separate the items when you've got a word in front, and then the rest of the information separating out which type of laminate it is or which type of foam core it is. So you can use either one of those. So I'm going to go back here and say, if you have items and you decide that one of these items you would like to have it up at the top of your list, then what you can do is change the item number. And just by clicking on the item, the name of the item, and going into the record, if you were to put the number in front of it, and let's say that we'll put in there 01, okay, and when you leave that record, it's going to ask you, do you want to change the item? And you're going to say yes. Okay, now this item is going to be at the top of the list. So if you do have something that's farther down on the list that you use all the time, then definitely you want to put that in there. Or of course you can set it up as a default and then you don't have to worry because it's always going to show up on your work order, and we'll cover that in a moment. But if you do change the item and you have other work orders that had the foam board on it, it will come up in the work order and tell you when you duplicate a work order that had a previous item on it and that no longer exists, and you duplicate it, a message will appear in the notes saying that this item has been discontinued, may be discontinued, check it. And it may or may not have a price. So it all depends on if the item is in there still or not. Okay, so that's one of the things to think about, is that if you do change it, the only concern that you would have is that if you're duplicating an old work order, it may not, it'll give you that message saying that it can't find that item. Don't worry about it, you've got the other item in there, go ahead and put it in. So that's the other thing to think about. Now, the other thing is the length of the names that you have on here, because you can see that this one is foam board acid-free 3/16 black. So it does fit on this screen. It does fit a little bit on the form view. It does get cropped off here. It will fit in the drop-down list. All right, so if I select it, however, it will not print all of it onto the printed work order. So we've got two foam board acid-free, there we go. So it's not going to show all of it on there. Now, if we change this and we go back to the regular layout for the work order, because you do have a lot of different options when you're printing out your work orders, which one you want to print. And I'm going to take that off and remove that as well, so that we're not printing out the RID tags. I'm going to go back to that work order, and if I click on the printer icon, it's going to show me that not all of it shows up. All right, so we're missing the word black there. So, and that might be something that's important. So one of the suggestions that I have is that if you do have a name that is very long, you may want to truncate it a little bit and put something shorter in there. AF for acid-free, BLK for black, BD for board. So give some thought to your names so that you can have them, everybody can recognize them, they know exactly what it is, and yet it's not going to be so long that you're missing pertinent information on your work orders when they are printed out. Another thing that you need to know is, let's go back to that one again, is do not use the double quotation mark for your inches. And the reason for that is because the double quotation mark is used as an operator. And if we click on the Find button and go up to Operators up here, you have all kinds of unique characters that you can use to find duplicate values. Or it's an exact phrase. It must have this word in it. And that double quotation mark is the start of that. So if it sees the double quotation mark, it says it's looking for an exact match of anything after that word, can't find it. So don't use that. And the other one that I really like using is the asterisk in searches to find anything that's in that field. So do not use that. The other recommendation I have is don't use capitals, because if your capitals take up a lot more space. And if you were to enter all of this in as capitals, then you can see that it's going to take up a lot more space on the screen here and when you're printing it out. So give some thought to maybe just using uppercase, lowercase if you could. 3, yeah, /1, 6, you know. So try and keep it lowercase. So those are just a few tips when you're naming the items. And we talked about the impact of the defaults as well. So I'm going to go back to saying, if you have set that one of these up as a default and you've changed the name of the default item that you have, make sure that you go back to the main menu in FrameReady under the Options tab and go down to more options. And this is where under the print options, I'm sorry, the work order default options, this is where you're going to find the item there. So if you click on foam board asset free, and this one says 32 by 40, and you'll see that nothing in the list is highlighted, nothing at all, which means that this item is no longer in my price codes file. I do not have this mounting item anymore, or the name of it was changed, which means that every time that I create a brand new work order, it's going to come up on the screen, but it isn't going to have a price because it can't price it, the item doesn't exist. So make sure that you change it to the item that you want it to be, and then when you create the work order, it will actually show it up on the list. All right, if it's not highlighted, so you can see this one is highlighted, so that one does exist in the list now. So I'm going to click done. Okay, and we are now ready for our first poll. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Chrissy, and we'll start with that.
Sounds good. I'm just going to launch it here. Which mounting items do you use? Foam board, dry mount, stretching, or other? Looks like everyone has voted, so I'm going to close the poll and share.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Everybody's using stretching. That's great. And foam board, dry mount out there. Yeah, I wish that there was an option that I could ask you to type in what are the other things you have, because I know somebody shared their list with me once of all the items that they had in the mounting section, and it was amazing to see what everybody is using it for. And that might be something that we could do on the Framers Facebook page, the FrameReady Framers Facebook page. Now we're at the point where we want to create a new mounting item. So I'm going to go directly over here. If I want, you can use the shortcut right on the main menu. And again, the recommendation is anytime you're finished with the screen, always return to the main menu, because it does two things. It lets you have access to all of these great shortcuts that you need, and also tells everyone else in the shop that you are finished using the computer. They don't need to yell across the room. So I'm going to click on new price code item. There we go. All of the items on the left-hand side are items that we update and provide we update the wholesale costs for you through the vendor updates, so you have access to those. The items on the right-hand side are the items that you need to take care of. These are the things that you put in yourself, and then you're going to update the prices as needed. So I'm going to click on mounting on the right-hand side. I'm going to enter in my item that I want to price out. So I think I've decided that I'm going to put in anything that I have in there. So let me just find something. There we go. So I'm going to put speed mount in there. And what you should have is you should have the price chart from the supplier of how much it costs for this product. And in this case, you probably don't need a UPC item. If there's a manufacturer's number, go ahead and enter it. When it's added onto a purchase order, if you decide to do that, it will actually put that in the description field. So that manufacturer item number will go in there. Now, the description field in here is really handy if you decide that you want to put in more information about the item. For example, I'm going to go back in here to mounting and take a look at the one that I have called full conservation. So that in here, there's a little note about what full conservation means to me in my shop. So you can write up any of the things that you want in that description field, and then if people are unsure, they can check that. Now, they do have to go to the price codes file to check that. It doesn't appear on the work order screen. So I'm going to go back to that new item that I just created. So it's going to be at the bottom of the list, and I can click on the yellow arrow that points farthest to the right to get right down to the bottom of the list, and then just click on form view so that I automatically go to the item I was just working on. So again, any description that I want, if I want to say that it's acid free, if I want to say that something is 300 DPI, or whatever details I want, I can put in there. This is very helpful too if you decide that you want to put in the thickness of it. So I would suggest you can enter it in as it is a fraction field. So whatever fraction you want, go ahead and type that in. Now underneath that is the cost field, and that's the cost of this product. So if it's 32 by 40, that's fine. You do not have to select the dimensions if you don't want. If this is the cost for a 32 by 40 piece, then what you would do is just leave it blank. If it's something larger than that or smaller, what you want to do is go ahead and select what it is, the size that you're pricing out. So let's say that whatever the object is that I'm pricing out is a 40 by 60, and the cost of that is going to go into the cost field on the left-hand side. Ignore the minimum cost field. This was created for a supplier who no longer uses it either. But we do have it in there just in case some people are using it for something. I don't know of anyone who is, but bypass that. Let's go down to the really important section here, and that is how are you going to price this item? There are a number of ways that you can do that. Over on the right-hand side, if we click on the dark blue tab for mounting pricing, and that dark blue tab is the same color as the dark blue for the cost. So we're working based on the cost under the mounting pricing, and the first field that you have an option to use is the markup. And generally, you don't have to do anything elaborate here. You don't need to do, if this is the case, that the cost is greater than 12 and less than 15. So you don't need any of that. All you need to do is type in the markup that you want. And when your cursor is in that field, it's still waiting for you to type, okay? Just in case you're about to type something else. So it isn't going to calculate a retail price for you until you either click outside of that field, okay? Or press the Enter key on your keyboard, okay? Or over on the right-hand side, if you still don't see any prices, click the Reset button. And the Reset populates all of the sizes in here and gives you the retail prices. So anytime that you have made changes to something, if you don't see a change in the pricing here, click the Reset button to give you the prices and have it calculate. The second field that you may want to use is your set price. So the markup is a multiplier based on the cost of the item. The set price is a flat rate fee, because when you look at some of these prices over on the right-hand side, you're going to notice that they're very small or low prices for the small sizes. And you're not going to be covering your cost and the labor that's involved in this. Sometimes people look at the set price as a labor charge as well, or it could also include part of the shipping fee that you have for a product that's coming in. So once you put something into the set price field, it's going to automatically recalculate that and put that into the right-hand side. And this gives you the ability, while you're playing with this, to calculate out your pricing to see how do you want the prices to go. So remember that the set price will affect the smaller sizes the most, and the markup will affect the larger sizes the most. So that if I have a large markup, you'll see the larger sizes go up in price, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference on the smaller sizes. Okay, so if I put that back down to 3, the 8x10 is at 10.03, and now it's down to 9.22. But the larger sizes changed about $30. So if we go back here again and I change the set price, you're going to see that it's going to make a larger change on the small sizes than it does on the larger sizes. Okay, so that's how you can use both of those fields in combination to get the pricing that you want. You can as well click on the buttons on the left-hand side and make the change over here to put in a different markup or a different set price. The reason that I like to go to the mounting pricing tab is that if I do make changes over here, I can't see how that affects my pricing. So I'm going to click close, and I'm going to go back to the mounting pricing. So this is where I can see the price sampler. Now the minimum price is a great way to say, what is my minimum that I want for this? And if you decide that, let's just pick a number, and I'll say that the minimum is going to be 12. Once I enter in the minimum price, none of the items that are below that amount are going to be less than $12, or whatever the amount is that I enter into the minimum price. So if I decided that it was going to be less than 20, you can see how high up it goes on the chart, and it floats to wherever your pricing is. All right, so you can use the minimum price if you want. Let's just leave something in there. So you have markup, set price, and minimum price. Using those three together combined. Now the other option that you have in here is the code table. And remember that the code table will take precedence over top of all of these others. So if I put in a code table right now, regardless of which one I put in, it's going to completely ignore the markup, the set price, and the minimum price. Well, actually, and the minimum price is the only one that isn't affected by the code table, because you can still have a minimum price in with this. But the markup and the set price are not being applied at this time. So I can change the set price as much as I want, but you'll see that it has not affected the prices on the right-hand side at all. So if you are using the code table, one of the things you could do, quite possibly, is to just remove the set price and the markup to let you know that when you come back here, these are the only options that you are using. And if you aren't using the minimum price, then remove that as well. So remove the pieces you aren't using and go ahead and use the code table. Now, the other thing that you can do in the mounting section, and this is available in the mat board and the mounting and the glazing fields, and that is combining together the code table and the markup and set price and minimum price, so that you can use all of them together. And some people will use this because what they'll do is they'll create the code table for the labor chart, and the code will just cover the labor, and then they'll use the markup on the materials and add in their set price. So you can use a combination of those, and all I need to do then is click on the button here in the center of the blue section, and now it's combined all three of those together. And you can see right away at the top of the screen, it's giving me the information to say a combination of the formula and code table is applied to this record. And if we were to go back to the list view and take a look, you'll also see on this particular record, and let's just go down to Speedmount, which is down at the bottom of the list. There it is. So we can see that we have a code table in here, and it's not going to show you on this screen how it's being priced, but you can see that there is a code table in. And you know that if there is a code table in, it's taking priority over top of the others. So I'm going to go back to that form view to see the details, clicking right on the name of the item, and let's go back to the mounting pricing. Now, once you've established all of these, the other thing that you do need to give some thought to as well, and possibly before you even do that, and I'm going to take off the code table, and if I want to remove the code table, I'm going to click on the clear button down at the bottom of the screen. Okay, and that removes it. Also, if you have a code in there and you're thinking, I don't know what that code looks like, I want to go see it, you can click on the button underneath here for code tables and it will go directly to it. And if you have a description of it, it will appear on the other screen. So I'm going to say $2 2 per UI or something, you know, to give me an idea of how was the pricing set up for this. Not necessarily what items are using it, but what was the structure that I used, what was the thought, what was my interpretation of the pricing, how did I set this up? Because when I come back to it later on, I may not remember. So here is just based on United Inch. It's not an XY factor. It's got retail prices here, and it tells you which item is using this code table. Now, we do have another webinar that's completely on code tables, and you can always watch that if you want to learn more about the code tables and how to use all of the buttons that are up at the top here. But I'm going to go back to that record that we were just working on, and I'm going to, again, remove that code table. So there's the description that I typed in about it. There's the date that it was created and hasn't been updated since then. So of course, if you see that date, you want to go back and maybe update your prices. But right now, what I want to do is I want to have my markup and my set price, and I want to decide how am I going to price this item out? Am I going to price it by United Inch area? Or am I going to price it by square inch? Those two are the most common ones to use. And the difference between them is that United Inch area for the larger sizes is going to generate a little bit of a higher price. It's more in favor of the framer. So even on the small sizes, you're going to see a little bit of a difference. So I'm going to toggle back and forth between them. So we've got 1054 on the very first item. With the square inch, it's going to drop down a penny, and that's it. But if I go down and I look at the larger sizes, we've got $64 here for the 48 by 72. And if I change it to the square inch, instead of 64, it drops down to 61.84. So you can see that the United Inch area is a little bit in favor of the framer, while the square inch is actually just exactly for per each inch. You can also price by the square foot if you want, or by the square yard or the linear yard. Those are more for fabrics though, and I find square foot is very popular for mirrors when you're doing that. Now, I would not recommend that you use the United Inch unless over here you're going to enter in that this is the price per United Inch. So don't get confused between United Inch and United Inch area, because we are pricing out based on an area here, not on the United Inch. Okay, there is, I think, maybe one company that does have United Inch pricing, and they will import that in, and it'll say United Inch in the dimensions, and then you need to select United Inch here. Okay, and linear inch, not very often used, but you can use that. But again, in mounting, we're usually pricing out a flat surface area. The other button on here that you may want to be looking at in case you want to make some changes is these are the standard sample sizes that are in here. But if you decided that you wanted to change some of those, a great place to do that is to click on Show More Details. And this is where you can go in and say, well, I want to know what a 12 by 12 is and a 12 by 14 is. And it's going to generate the prices for you. Or if you wanted to change, some of the sizes down at the bottom, you could do that as well, and it will change the retail prices. If you want to go back to the original price sampler, then you just need to click on the button that says Reset Size Defaults, and it will put them back. But again, if I change the ones at the top here and I go back to the screen that we were on previously under the mounting pricing, this same reset button will do that as well, and it will put it back to the original price sampler that we were viewing before. So you have that option to take a look at those two items. And that gives you a chance to evaluate your pricing. Again, another great way to look at items is to, let's go back up to list view. And then I have marked selected items that I wanted to take a look at. So when I click on the Find Marked Records, all of the marked items come up and I can see them. I can click on the underlined word cost, so that I can see them together in a listing. And then what I can do is go back to any one of them, and in the bottom left-hand corner, there is the price comparison screen. So I can compare the prices on these items to see how they're set up. One thing I would caution you about is when you're using this screen, be sure to click on the reset button, because if it hasn't been clicked recently, it could just be still showing you the set price or not have any prices in it at all yet. So this is a great way to compare items to see, for instance, if you had all of your foam core, you did a find for all of your foam core products, and you wanted to see how the regular one is comparing to the black foam core, the white foam core, or the 3/16 comparing to the 1/8. Are they the same price? Are they different? Is it such an outrageous difference, or is it close? So it just gives you a chance. If you wanted to, you could also print this out and take a look at it to compare prices and come back, and it will show you the cost, the markup, set price. And the beauty of this is that if you decided that something was a little bit too low and you wanted to change it, you can do it right on this screen. So you can make changes to your pricing here and see instantly the results to say, I wanted this one to be higher than the others, and it is now. Okay. And then just when you made that change, it is set. You do not need to click save or close or exit. It is done already. So I'm going to click done, and we're going to go back to our regular screen that we were looking at before. So Chrissy, I'm going to take a short break now again and let you do another poll that we have.
All right, sounds good. We still don't have any questions, but if you'd like to ask anything, now's the time. Carol's ready.
Yes.
All right, so we'll launch the poll here. How many items do you have in your mounting list? 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, or over 20 voted? And I'll share the results.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yep. So 6 to 10 and then 16 to 20. Yeah. And a lot will depend on whether or not you have a foam core acid-free, and that's it, or if you have foam core acid-free 32 by 40, foam core acid-free 40 by 60, or if you have multiple items of the same thing, printing services. If you're offering printing services, and you may have a lot of those items in there as well. So wow, that's really fascinating. Thank you everyone for sharing. Super. So I'm going to go back here, and one of the things that we just mentioned was having all those different items in there. I find that most people are not necessarily using the mounting for their inventory. So unlike things like glass, where you might want to have the sheet of 32 by 40 in there, or the sheet of 40 by 60 in there, you don't necessarily need to. So you can have a shorter list in your mounting items, and that helps. And we're going to take a look in a few minutes at the work order and how that affects it. But there is another tab here I want to show you, and that is the retail price tab. And I'm going to go back to my foam board item here. Let's go to the foam board asset free. So on here, if somebody came in, and you can see this retail price button, this is the same pale blue color as the invoice. So it makes that instant connection with your mind, I hope, that this is the retail price if you were to put this particular item onto an invoice and sell it. It automatically defaults to a markup of 2. But if you want to change that markup, you can put another amount in there, and it's automatically going to change the retail price of the item that you are selling. If it's blank, it's a 2 times markup. Or if whenever they're purchasing this, they must purchase 5 of them at a time, then you can put the unit quantity in there as well. I'm just going to remove that. So if I wanted to sell, somebody came in, they're doing a school project, they're going to be purchasing some mount board or foam core or something, I can go directly to the invoice file, and I'm going to create a brand new invoice for them. And if you know what the item is, then you can just start typing it in. Okay, and if you type it in, you have to be exact. So without being exact, then it's not going to find the item at all. Okay, so in that case, what I would recommend that you do is use the magnifying glass and then type in if you want just a little bit of it or all of it, and it will do a search based on that item number. So now it's found the 2 that I have in the inventory here. I'm going to select one of those, and it automatically puts it in there for me. And then if I wanted to, I can change the quantity. Maybe they bought 2 pieces. So you can sell any of your mounting items or your mat board even, or if somebody wanted a piece of mat board for that same school project, you can just type the mat board on there as well. So you can sell any of your products that you use for picture framing to the retail public through the invoice file. And I'll click on done there, and we'll exit out. Nope, not going to put a customer in right now. Of course you would. So we would do it right. I'm just speeding along here. So that is how you can sell those items onto the invoice using the pale blue retail pricing tab. There's also if it's a tax exempt item, then you can mark it as tax exempt, and that would appear on the invoice as well. So the next thing I want to take a look at is the tracking of this. In the top right hand corner, I mentioned to you that molding, let's go over here. Molding, mat board, and fabric are all items that we provide the wholesale costs for you, for the vendors, so that you can update them. And if we were to go to those items, you'll see that it will tell you whether it's verified or not and what the date was on it. And that's the same with all of those. However, mounting, this is one of those ones where I would not expect you to put anything into the validation date, because this allows you to use it for the molding to say, I want to find all my not verified items, or I want to find all my discontinued items. Chances are, if you have something in your mounting section that's discontinued, delete it. Use the button in the bottom left-hand corner, remove it. You don't need it any longer. It's just taking up space in your list on the work order screen, and you don't need that. In the top right-hand corner, though, I would put in the date. So if this was the date that the item was created, then leave it in there. However, if at this point in time we're updating this price and it's no longer $10.50, it's now $11, what I want to do then is change the date on that item to today's date. And you don't have to scroll through the calendar, because this was June of 2019. So I can go right down to the bottom and just click on the word today, and it puts today's date in there. So it tells me, when I'm looking at my list of all my mounting items over on the right hand side, when was the last time that I updated the prices on some of these items. And if you haven't done it for a while, this is a great time for you to go through and say it's time to update these items. Go through, find your foam core items, and you can do it right on this screen, I believe. So if I wanted to change the wholesale cost of these items, I can do that and then go over to the right-hand side. Now, in this case, I do need to type the date in if I'm doing it from this screen. So I could type it in and do that. The other thing that I do like on this is that if I have changed the date on one of them, you can also drag and drop. So I can click on that date and pull it down to the next one and say, yes, I've updated that one as well. If it's a whole number, you don't need to type in the 2 double zeros. If you type in a whole number, it will put the decimal points in for you afterwards. So you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so this is a great way for you to update all of your wholesale costs, because the minute that you've updated that wholesale cost, it has automatically come in here and recalculated the prices so that it's now up to date. And the minute you do that, anybody who's putting that item onto a work order is now using the newest prices. It doesn't take that long to go through, get your sheet out from your supplier. What are they charging you for an item? Put that cost in for one board. All right, so that's all you need to do is put it in there for one board. Now, if you are ordering that item and you decide that you want to order it from the supplier, and I'm just going to put on this one, I'll put in a number 3163240. So if that was the manufacturer's number and I decided I wanted to reorder this, mounting is kind of one of those things where you could do it from this screen, or you could have it listed under supplies because it's, has a certain quantity that you need to reorder. And if I know what my reorder quantity is, I could put it in here. We also have a video that talks all about, using the purchase orders for reordering. And then I can say, which is the company, and I had one already that I was using, Cotillo, and I'm going to say, post this item to a purchase order because I need to order another box of this. And I'll put the 5, I'll leave the 5 in there for now. Okay, do you want to post this onto a new purchase order or onto the last one that has not been placed? So it's still available to send. And I know that I have one open, so I will say last. All right, and now it's on that purchase order. And if I go up to the purchase order, if you're ordering a box of these, remember that one each, that's just going to be one. If there's 5 in a box or 20 in a box or whatever the number is that's in the box, if you put it in this way, they may charge you the per board price. So my recommendation is always to say 1 and then change the unit to say box, so that you want 1 box of this to be ordered and you know that it's ordered. And then if you want, you can come back and accept it. You don't necessarily need to. If you are going to accept it, that's when you need to go back and change it to say, yep, there's going to be 20 of those that came in. But I don't find that people are really using the purchase orders necessarily to update or keep track of exactly how many sheets of foam board you have. If it was molding or mat board or fabric, absolutely, because they're one of a kind. You only have so many atomic orange mats, so you do want to keep track of that. But with the foam board or some of the other substrates and things that you have in here, maybe not so much. Now, if we take a look at how this is going to play out on the work order, let's go take a look at the work order right now. So if I'm entering the foam board on here, and if I create a brand new work order, so let's go ahead and do that. It's going to put my default in, and my default, as you can see, let's go vertical. Okay, and we'll throw some numbers in there, was that foam core acid free. So it automatically put that item in there, which is great, and it's already started to price it out for me. If this isn't the item that I want, you can always use the teal colored button with the white X to remove that item from the list. If you click on the list, it's going to give you a drop-down list. So there's my drop-down list, and I can press the first letter on the keyboard if I know that I'm going down to the wraps. Okay, so it automatically does that. If you're a person that doesn't like to use the mouse too much, if I press the first letter and use the arrows on my keyboard, it's going to scroll down or scroll up in here. And then all I need to do is press the enter key, and it's going to automatically put that item in, tab, and we go to the next field and down to the next list. And then again, you can use the keyboard rather than the mouse to move up or down and select the items that you want. So, or bypass them. So you can do that, you can use the mouse. Either way, just to give you a couple of different options on what you can do and how to enter the items in. Now, the cursor automatically goes to the bright yellow quantity box, and the bright yellow is always the quantity field, so that if I'm building out the frame, I need extra foam core in the back, I'm going to go and identify that, how much I need. Because right now it's for the thickness of one, which was 3/8, but because I'm going to change this to the number 2, it's going to tell me, do I have the thickness in there? Probably not. And I'm going to click on the, actually, let me go back to where we should change this. Let's go back to the price codes file here. And I'm going to go to that foam core acid free. Oh, I do have the 3/8 in there. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to select that item again, and I'm going to put in the quantity of, let's go 3 or something. There we go. Of course, when I was doing this earlier, it changed that, which is what it should do. So I've done something that changed it. I'll have to check on that. So this will show you what the rabbit depth is that you need. So as you add in more elements here, and let's just go check on this. Yep, it does have it in there. Because as I add in other items that have a different thickness, it's going to change the amount of the thickness in here. And also when I add in other additional items, you can see now that there's a little arrow pointing to the left that identifies that there's more than one item in here. And you have the ability, by clicking on the mount stretch, to add in up to 4 different items in here. So you may have different things that you want to put in here. Oh, that's the item I was supposed to put in there, was the hinging. So if you wanted to put the hinging in there, you could do that as well. If we were going to be doing some fabric spray or wrap or roll or something. So all of the different items that you're putting in here can go in up to 4 of them. And it'll give you the total, and that total is going to appear in the right-hand side over here. If you delete this first one, it still leaves all the other items in there. And when you print it out onto the printed work order, description, okay, mounting, there we are, and it's going to show you the other items that are in here. Of course, you left the first one blank, that's fine, it doesn't matter, but it sometimes it's nice to just go back and say, no, I needed to put the fabric on there and then just remove the other item. Sometimes people like to put them in order too. If there's a mat board, and that's another option that you can do, is that you might have a mounting item that is a mat board. So in your mount stretch, you want to do a float mount. So the art is going to be floating over top of the mat board, and then behind the mat board is the foam board. So in that case, don't select something from the drop-down list. Type in the mat board number that you're going to be using. It's going to price it out the same as it was on the mat board section. But now the mat board is listed with the mounting board directly below it. And when I go to print out the work order, it's going to show me that this is a float mount, and I would probably have selected under mat design float mount and put in the mat board first and then the foam board that's going behind it, or whatever the substrate is. So that's another way that you could use that section to identify the different types of things that you're doing. So in here, I would probably have under mat design, float mount or float art or raised mat or whatever you want to call it. And then if I do have the mat as well, and there is an opening cut into it, then I would go ahead and identify what the opening is, how much it is around there. And then the opening doesn't go up directly to the piece of art. There's going to be some space around it. So I'm going to identify how much space is around the art, you know, to create that opening, that space. All right, so I now have a piece of art, 2 inches of mat board. There's a 1/2 inch space before the art is there, and then there's a bit of that same mat that's appearing behind the opening for that area where I've got my space. So when you look at the printed work order, we're going to take a look and see how that looks. So you can easily see that yes, there's a mat that has an opening cut into it, but I also have my mat here. And then I have my foam board behind it. And again, I would have my mat design saying raised mat, float mount, or whatever it is to tell the framer this is exactly what I'm doing. Super. So I'm just going to click the continue button there, and I'm going to say cancel. And that is everything that I have for you today on mounting. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, Chrissy?
I don't see any. No. a quiet crowd today.
There we go. Lots to absorb, and I find that even if you know a lot of the things that I'm telling you, because I know we've got people who've been using FrameReady for over 20 years now, there's always something new or some little tidbit that you might be able to take home and use.
We got a message from Lisa, and she says it's very helpful and thank you.
That's excellent.
That's great.
So thank you everyone for watching Mounting Price and Enter. We'll say bye.
Bye, everybody.